Election offered many people new hope. Since then, he's been accused of failing to do enough to tackle issues of racism and police brutality. So what does Barack Obama think his own legacy will be? David Botti takes a look.
8 years in office and lots of decisions. Does President Obama have any regrets? Well, we couldn't ask him directly, but he has spoken about regrets in the past. Here's a few of them. Libya. Last year, a Fox News host asked Obama a simple question.
Worst mistake?
Probably failing to plan for the day after what I think was the right thing to do in intervening in Libya.
Obama told The Atlantic magazine he misjudged two things. First, how much tribal divisions would play a role in post-Gaddafi Libya. And second, how little he'd be able to rely on France and the UK to help rebuild the country. Of course, those governments didn't quite see it that way. Guns. A lot of mass shootings happened on Obama's watch. Here he is in 2015 talking to the BBC.
The one area where I feel that I've been most frustrated and most stymied, we do not have sufficient common sense gun safety laws, even in the face of repeated mass killings.
Partisanship. Here's the president a year ago giving his last State of the Union speech.
It's one of the few regrets of my presidency that the rancor and suspicion between the parties has gotten worse instead of better. I have no doubt a president with the gifts of Lincoln or Roosevelt might have better bridged the divide.
Now, funnily enough, on this issue, Obama really seems to compare himself to his predecessors. The president later told Vanity Fair that maybe he could have gotten more done if he'd had the genius of Abraham Lincoln, the charm of FDR, the energy of Teddy Roosevelt, or the legislative acumen of LBJ. Guantanamo. Obama campaigned on a promise to close the Guantanamo Bay prison. Of course, it's still open. And President-elect Trump wants to keep it that way.
And we're going to load it up with some bad dudes, believe me, we're going to load it up.
So when a 7th grader in Ohio asked Obama what he wished he'd done differently on his first day in office,
I think I would have closed Guantanamo on the first day. I didn't because at that time, as you will recall, we had a bipartisan agreement that it should be closed. And I thought that we had enough consensus there that we could do it in a more deliberate fashion.
Finally, Syria. Syria, Obama has said, haunts him constantly. But he told Vanity Fair that he doesn't necessarily regret how he's handled the conflict. Still, he said, quote, "I do ask myself, was there something that we hadn't thought of? Was there some move that is beyond what was being presented to me that maybe a Churchill could have seen, or an Eisenhower might have figured out?" No doubt President Obama will reflect on his decisions for the rest of his life. So will we, and so will history.
Politics and his regrets aside, he's created some memorable moments at the White House, dancing and singing like no other president before him.
And then to know that Reverend Al Green was here. So in love with you.
Last week, Prince George showed up to our meeting in his bathrobe. That was a slap in the face. A clear breach of protocol.
No, you are not. You are not.
You slow down.
Oh my goodness. You are not. I want to be like you, but I don't want to.
She dancing? Come on.
Oh my goodness.
So what's the secret to still dancing at 106?
Huh? Just keep
looking out on the morning rain. I used to feel so uninspired when I knew I had to face another day. Oh, it made me feel so tired.
Sorry, I'm going to start over. I'm going to start at I will contrast. Hey, get out of here.
That's the most persistent fly I've ever seen. Nice.
Now, Where were we?
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was
Politics aside, I'm sorry, he has got to have been the coolest president so far ever. What will he be remembered for, though? Let's speak now to Mara Rudman, a former national security official for both Barack Obama and Bill Clinton's administrations. She also studied at law school with Obama. She's obviously a Democrat. And we've also got with us Robert George, who's an editorial writer for the New York Daily News, who is a Republican. Welcome, both of you. Let's start with you, Robert George. What will his legacy be?
Well, I think you'd have to put it in sort of two categories, sort of a historical, cultural legacy, which I think some of those last couple of showed the impact he had there. And then, of course, like any other president, he's got a political and a policy legacy, and that one is a little bit more. That's a little bit more mixed in the context of the economy, foreign policy, etc.
What would be a success? What would be a failure, Robert George?
I think as a success from his terms, in the context of something that Democrats in the United States have been wanting for a long time, is getting closer to a national health care system. Now, obviously, many Republicans pushed back at that, and in fact, one of the very first policy choices that the Republicans and incoming President Donald Trump are going to work on is repealing what is known as Obamacare. But it is definitely rooted in, and whatever replacement that the Republicans come up with is going to be a lot further along towards what they see as a national health care system than they would have liked. I give him sort of a B or B minus in the context of the economy, given where the country was when he came in. However, the country, in terms of its in terms of the gross economic increases year to year, has been a lot further behind where similar recoveries were after Presidents Reagan and Presidents Clinton. So that's not so great. Failures, I think, though, foreign policy has been unfortunately. I think the Middle East in particular is much messier than it was when he came in 8 years ago.
Let me bring in Mara Rudman then. What would you give him an A for, and what would you give him a B minus for?
Thanks. Good to be here. Well, first of all, I think that you need to look broadly at what he has brought in his presidency, and particularly when we look at what's coming next. And he embodies American values and constitutional values in just his very being and in his essence and in his presence, his intelligence, his decency, and his charisma. And he is a president that we can be proud of and that the country can be proud of. And I think that should not be sold short. In terms of what he gets an A for, I think absolutely the economy and his healthcare system. I think history will judge him very well for that. And
sorry, Mara, sorry to interrupt. You would give him an A for the economy, would you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I worked for President Clinton, and so I saw the tremendous benefits of the economy that President Clinton left for President Bush. I saw what President Obama inherited.
Okay,
And
Robert George, you want to come back in there?
Where we are in comparison to the rest of the world. The United States economy right now is doing incredibly well. I understand where people feel that the opportunities they have lost, but when you look at it on just on a relative basis, he has done a tremendous job.
Well, I think one of the controversies or disputes they have in the United States is how much of the current economy is from President Obama's policies, and how much of it has been from, say, the central bank, the Federal Reserve. They've kept interest rates basically at zero for most of his administration, and that may be one of the reasons why we have a better job creation than say Europe and the rest of the world.
Maura?
Sure, I think history will look back and look at the 8-year period of his presidency, and history judges presidents the time they were in office, and it's his leadership and how the economy fared under him, just as they've judged President Clinton and President Reagan, as my colleague just spoke about the times of their presidencies.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's not exactly a quibble. I'm certainly I know a number of my Republican friends would give President Obama something more like a D or worse on the economy. I mean, I think it's good. It's just I wouldn't quite give it an A, given some of the other factors as I just referenced.
Okay. Briefly, Maura Rudman, how, as a Democrat, how worried are you about incoming Donald Trump as president, reversing much of what President Obama has tried to do in the last 8 years?
Listen, I'm concerned, but what I'm as concerned about is just the fundamental institutions of our government and our democracy. And so that's not an issue of a Democrat or a Republican. That goes to being an American. And so what I will hope for is that Americans come together and recognize what's most important for our country, and that's why I started with is what President Obama embodies, and I hope that we will come together as a country and ensure that those qualities stay.
Thank you very much, Maura Rudman, Democrat. Robert George, Republican. Dowie says, watching your piece on President Obama, I wish we had a Prime Minister as charming, funny and thoughtful as him.